My name is Rowan Ashford, and I buried my only daughter 3 weeks ago. She was always my only child. She went by the name Rosie. She had reached the age of 8. She believed that whatever pain she was experiencing could be alleviated by glitter stickers and banana pancakes, and she enjoyed watching space documentaries and painting rocket ships. My car was parked outside the funeral home on the morning of her funeral, and I was sitting there by myself. I was still wearing the clothing that smelled like lilies from the wake, and my hands were shaking so much that they wouldn't stop. I aimed my gaze at the final message that my sister had sent. It is just one word. All right. I am sorry, but not. However, I will be present. It's just fine. I learned the reason for it later on that day. My mother and my sister had successfully went forward with the housewarming party that Celeste had planned. She was unable to reschedule the appointment, the one that had been deliberated upon for a number of weeks. It was Rosie's funeral that they called. A final farewell to a youngster who endured excruciating pain for a period of 12 months. Not much of an occurrence. It was at that precise moment when something within me fell apart. It is not in the manner in which things break and collapse, but rather in the manner in which things get sharper. My voice was not heard. No, I did not beg. I made a phone call to him. Not at all. Is this a story about sorrow? No, not really. The focus is on what occurs after that. You get a clearer picture of the kind of woman you are when the people you trusted the most choose to celebrate the death of your kid rather than mourn it. As for me, I came to realize that I am not the type of lady who would let that go. Before I finally had the fortitude to open the door of my vehicle, I sat in it for another 40 minutes. In front of me, the funeral home appeared to be looming. The windows were silent and the wood was dark, as if it were designed to have the capacity to completely consume grief and leave nothing but stillness behind. Not that I was trying to avoid going inside. Indeed, Rosie had already arrived. The interior of that building, within a coffin that no child should ever be allowed to be in. I simply required a sensation of something solid before I was required to let go once more. The phone rang in my lap and buzzed. I had just sent a text message to my family, and it was still open to receive it. Rosie has expired. The funeral will take place on Friday at 10 o'clock. One word was all that my sister, Celeste, had to say in response. All right. I'm sorry, but not. Indeed, I will be present. So that's it. All right. My mother had not communicated with me in any way. To this point, her name appeared on the screen as if it were a curse. Because I lacked the strength to hold the phone to my ear, I pressed the speaker button instead. Rowan. It seemed as though we were ready to talk about brunch when she made her statement. As I stated, I am present. Even my speech was hardly audible to the human ear. Following that, there was a little pause. Relating to the funeral. I was aware. Without delay. It was the same as submerging oneself in ice. We are unable to make it, she stated. We made a commitment to Celeste that we would assist with the housewarming. The event has been scheduled for several weeks now. While I was staring out the window, I was overcome by a haze of tears that I had not even realized had returned. This was her housewarming, I stated again. Mom went on to say that it is her very first home. Do you have any idea how significant that is to her? Even more significant than the funeral for Rosie. She screamed, "Don't be so dramatic," and in the span of a single breath, her tone went from one of feigned sadness to one of disdain. You've had plenty of time to get ready. For the past year, Rosie has been suffering from illness. This shouldn't come as much of a shock to anyone. No, I did not respond to her. I hung up the phone. After that, I dialed Celeste's number. After 2 rings, she took up the phone, and her tone was irritated. What exactly is it? You are planning to have a celebration on the day when my daughter will be laid to rest. She addressed it in a direct manner to Rowan. The date was set weeks ago. It's too late to save her. It does not matter to her what day she is laid to rest. Now that I am alive, I need to rejoice and move on with my life. My fingers felt strange and numb all of a sudden, and I began to feel the phone slip out of my hand. From time to time, Rosie would add that her favorite house was the one that Celeste was moving into, which was Grandma's former place. Not only did she adore the pink tile in the kitchen, but she also cherished the creaky steps that, if you stepped on them just right, sounded like laughter. This is something that she once said: if a property can make someone happy, then perhaps it ought to remain in the family. While the casket of my daughter was being lowered into the ground, that house would now be occupied by strangers who were sipping wine. No, I did not respond to Celeste. No language in existence could possibly meet her where she had decided to stand. There was no language that could. Upon entering the funeral home, the director extended a warm greeting to me. He appeared to be anticipating the arrival of someone else as his eyes surveyed the area behind me. Nobody was on the scene. Not a single member of the family showed up. Every seat that had been allotted for them remained vacant. It was as if the photographs of Rosie, which were displayed in the hallway, were exhibits in a museum that no one wanted to visit. The photographs showed her in her superhero Halloween outfit and blowing out candles on her most recent birthday. At the cemetery, I was the only person there. The wind had a strong gust. I said my goodbyes without holding anyone's hand. Even not my mother's, in fact. Later that evening, when the room had finally become quiet, I sat on Rosie's bed, surrounded by the drawings that she had created for her nurses over the day. The rock collection that she favored was displayed on the windowsill. Something dawned on me during that period of stillness. My grief was not limited to the loss of my daughter. It was as if I was lamenting the absence of a family. Rather, they were not simply absent. A decision had already been made by them, and I was about to make my own. There was no sleep for me that night. I chose to reread each and every message that my mother and Celeste had sent me, as if I were picking at a scab in order to experience the pain. I made the first call that was significant at 3 in the morning. Over the course of more than 3 decades, Mr. Carlyle had served as my grandmother's attorney. In the third ring, he answered the phone with a tone that was solemn and courteous, the kind of tone that is typically saved for widows and terrible news. I skipped the pleasantries and started by saying, "I need to confirm something. Is it true that Celeste legally owns the house that she lives in, which was my grandmother's house?" A brief pause transpired. Paper was spread out. Then, his voice came back, and it was distinct and solid. "This is not the case, Miss Ashford. The deed is still in your name. As a result, the move was never finished. I am the one who possesses it." As I stared at the ceiling, my eyes blinked in response to the intense light of the morning. "Surely, that can't be true," I argued. The previous year, I handed her the keys. It was a gentle reminder that the act of providing keys is not the same as giving property. It was your recommendation that I put the paperwork on hold until the situation with Rosie's diagnosis was resolved. In pieces, it was brought back. My mother and Wayne were seated at my kitchen table 1 week after Grandma's burial. The tea had gone cold, and their comments were soft and manipulative. Mom had added, "Celeste needs a new beginning," while agitating her spoon with high levels of nervous energy. "She does not possess anything." Wayne continued by saying that you already have your own place. I was too devoid of emotion to protest, too overwhelmed by the schedules of the hospital, too afraid, and too overwhelmed by medical terminology that I still couldn't pronounce. "Okay," I'd said, "okay. She is free to take it. Later on, we will begin the paperwork." The later never arrived. My eyes were still sore, and my fingers were curled around the edge of Mr. Carlyle's desk as I sat across from him once again. I was still clothed in black. Exactly 4 hours ago, I had laid my child to rest. At this point, I was discovering something completely different. Other than that, he mentioned something else. "A year ago, you requested that I maintain financial records for the purpose of filing taxes. Then I dragged them." It was a packet that he slid toward me. On the bill was written my name. I took my time opening it. There was a bank statement on the very first page. Then someone else. "We have 5 years' worth of them, broken down by month." Every single one of them displayed a continuous movement of $2,000 from my account to my mother's account. Even while Rosie was receiving therapy for the months to come. I was able to cover co-pays even when I was selling first editions of books. Even last month, when I paid for anti-nausea medication with my credit card to its maximum limit. I felt a rumble in my gut. An additional page was affixed to the back of the record. A loan for a car. An alias for my mother. $42,000. 1 month after Rosie was diagnosed with the condition. It is a Mercedes. As I sat back, the air in the room had died down. The ringer on my phone. I received a text message from my mother. We are in need of more this month. The cost of insurance increased. Greetings, Rosie. I did not give a response. Instagram was the app one opened instead. There was a photo that was posted just 2 hours ago that was at the top of my feed. Celeste, as well as my mother. My grandmother's kitchen was filled with champagne glasses that were lifted. New Beginnings was written in the caption. Please bless the new home. Thanks for the hash. Hash family comes first. They were smiling as they looked into the antique mirror that was located in the background. I used to have a mirror that belonged to the woman who brought me up, who had the intention of making that house like a second home for my daughter. The final fracture was caused by that. This is not only their absence, not only their own self-centeredness, but there is a smile hiding beneath it. Not forgetting was involved here. Time was not a problem at all. That was a horrible act. The hashtags were used to plan, package, and share the content. My gaze was drawn to Mr. Carlyle. What are the requirements? I instructed them to leave with a voice as strong as steel. His eyes did not blink. I'll get the paperwork ready for you. Along with my daughter, the part of me that used to flinch, used to justify, and used to hope passed away right then and there. What was left would not be disregarded in any way. I gave myself until the sun could set. Up until the point where the sky turned the same shade of lavender as Rosie's dearest sweater. For the very last time, I allowed myself to fall apart. I held her final sketch, which was only halfway completed, and I colored beyond the lines. I let the pain to settle in my chest like fog. After that, I got to my feet and dialed Mr. Carlyle's number. The paperwork for the eviction had already been initiated by him. What came next was a call to Noel. Since the funeral, we hadn't had any communication with one another. Flash drives, printouts, and the remorse of a father who was unable to save his daughter but may potentially assist her mother in reclaiming something were all things that he brought with him that night. It was at the kitchen table, which was now covered in evidence, that we worked. Captures of text on a screen. Photographs of birthdays celebrated in the hospital. The communication in which I informed my family that Rosie had passed away. We designated each and every message as a raid. The response from Celeste was, "Okay." At that moment, Noel sent me an email. He replied that it was from your landlord. It was my mother who had contacted him, asserted that I was mentally unwell, and requested that he transmit my rent payments to her directly. The good news is that he declined. Then again, I had it written down now. It's not only that they lack compassion, I remarked. This is a premeditated move. After that, I went to my grandmother's house to meet with 2 law enforcement officers. The deed was handed over to them. Officer Brennan stated that I am Miss Ashford. You are the owner within the law? Indeed, as it has always been. The door was opened by Celeste, who was wearing yoga pants and holding a smoothie. When she saw me, her face fell, she said. Suddenly, she snapped, "This is my house." I replied with a negative. Simply put, you pretended that it was. A notice of 48 hours was provided by the officers. In a fit of wrath, Celeste screamed and cursed. Viewing from their porches, the neighbors watched. I informed her that I had buried my daughter by myself while you were celebrating her memory with a glass of champagne. I went ahead and changed the locks that night. By the time morning arrived, I had 4 security cameras installed and connected to the cloud. I did not have a sense of victory. I was aware of something more acute. In command. Celeste's departure was not a quiet one. It was just after midnight when my security app began to vibrate. This was 2 nights after the eviction notice had been given. One of the motion sensors was activated. After that, the feed showed a brief glimpse of night vision. It was parked in the middle of the driveway where her car was. Her hand was holding something that glistened with a metallic sheen as she proceeded toward the back of the home. It was captured on tape that she used a swing of a bat to smash the rear window of the vehicle. No hesitation on my part. I dialed the emergency number. Currently, my sister is breaking into my house. I am in possession of live footage. It had been 2 days since she was lawfully removed. By the time I became aware of the sirens, I had already exited the building and was looking around while holding my phone and standing on the sidewalk. The police cruiser arrived at the scene. Brennan, the officer, stepped out first. There was a hint of recognition on his face. Then there is something more sinister. This is confirmed. Who is she inside? He inquired about it. I gave a slight nod. The back window. As you will see. The officers made their way toward the residence. As she rushed through the front door, Celeste continued to hold the bat in her hand. Mess was made of her hair. There were streaks of anger on her face. You put your own sister in the custody of the police? A step was taken by Officer Brennan in front of her. Ms., please put down the firearm. She let it fall while sneering at it. This is completely absurd. My home is located here. I replied with a negative. It is not the case. Cameras are evidence of this fact. Her gaze quickly shifted toward the red lens that was situated beneath the eaves and was blinking. I told the police that I'd like to file a formal complaint. Making a break-in and entering. Vandalism is a crime. While Brennan's partner was reading Celeste rights, he informed her that she would be required to fill out a statement. Once, my sister threw up, but they did not even flinch in response. In silence, the neighbors watched from the porches and doorways of their homes. Nobody made a sound. When I woke up the following morning, my mother was there on my front doorstep. Eyes with a red rim. She was wearing a purse that was like armor on her chest. She was not invited inside by me. Rowan, this has reached an unacceptable level. We form a family. I replied with a negative. You have made a decision. Rosie was cast aside by you. She would hope to avoid this kind of split. My voice was filled with frost as I pleaded with her to refrain from uttering her name. Her sadness mask began to fall off. The tone of her voice softened. Your behavior has always been challenging. Oh, how delicate. With this, Megan runs the risk of losing her job. Before she destroyed a window, she ought to have given anything like that some thought. Later that afternoon, a video that had been substantially modified was uploaded to Facebook. Celeste attempts to make herself appear as though she is the victim by piecing together several fragments of security footage. On the other hand, the truth spoke for itself. Initially, Rosie's instructor made a statement. At the funeral, I was present. I noticed that the first row was vacant. Her hospice nurse added her 2 cents. During Rosie's dying hours, Rowan and I were sitting together. By oneself. Photos of the funeral have been made public. Attended by dozens of people. A single row of family seats in the front that are vacant. The county health department then issued a statement concerning the matter. Until further inquiry can be conducted, Miss Ashford has been placed on leave. Once again, my phone rang. This is my mama. She then remarked, almost in a state of panic, that the church is asking questions. The footage was viewed by the sister of your father. That might be the end of our reputation. As I mentioned earlier, it is not about your reputation. It is about the actions that you took. She made an attempt to place blame on me. They called me cruel. I stated that I would be sorry to cut them off. Aside from that, I didn't even flinch once. It was confirmed by my attorney. We have received letters requesting that you cease and desist. They cannot post anything about you since it is against the law. As for me, I responded. Next, you should file the restraining orders. How about the house? I am a foundation for cancer. There was a moment of stillness. After that, I comprehended. That evening, I strolled around the living room of my grandma, which was otherwise vacant. At that moment, I had the sensation that it was mine. In order to retrieve a piece of folded paper, I reached behind a row of books and pulled it out. Drawing done by Rosie. A stick person outfitted with a red cape and sporting unkempt locks. If you read her handwriting, you would see that my mother is a superhero. The tears that were shed this time were not caused by grief, but rather by something more positive. Something comparable to liberty. Immediately following the day that I gave away the house, I was inundated with messages. There were several that came from distant cousins, people who had previously published Celeste's video without any reservations. At this point, they made reluctant apologies and explanations that were embarrassing. It was not necessary for others to make justifications. It was as simple as saying, "I'm sorry," and they took it from there. I didn't respond to any of them at all. In the later hours of that day, Noel made a visit. He did not bring any casseroles or flowers with him. There is only a manila envelope and 2 cups of coffee. While he was sliding the folder across my counter, he said, "This is everything." The evidence that we had gathered, including screenshots, bank records, email chains, and the paper trail that demonstrated how my mother and sister stole money from me while I was attempting to save my daughter's life, was included within the envelope. "What else is there?" I inquired about it. He indicated with a nod. "Still one more thing. A total of more than $12,000 was raised by the foundation in Rosie's honor. There are still donations coming in." The envelope was shoved on my chest by me. When I was choking, it wasn't because of my anguish for once. A more gentle quality was present. This is comparable to pride. Later on that evening, as I was cleaning out Rosie's art box, I received another notification on my phone. Another letter that has been issued. The one that comes from Megan's attorney. When I was at the sink, I opened it while the faucet was running. It was a truce that was disguised as a threat, an offer to settle problems quietly, and an attempt to prevent additional damage to the name of the family. Nobody laughed at me. No, I did not cry. Immediately after placing the letter in the shredder, I returned to the task of washing the paintbrushes. In that particular week, I removed the final sympathy cards from the table. No, it wasn't because I was moving on. That phrase is really annoying. To put it another way, I was sick of being frozen. There was still a freshness to Rosie's tomb, and the grass had not yet grown. As I crouched down next to her headstone, I ran my fingertips across the letters that were inscribed on it. I spoke over you that I had always taught you to be kind. Nevertheless, I ought to have taught you to maintain your composure as well. Certainly, I am gaining knowledge. There was a tiny box waiting for me outside my front door when I arrived home. An individual flower and a letter written in a crooked handwriting were found inside. Yes, I was aware of what your family did. You are not the only one. There was no signature on it. It was not necessary for it to be. While I was standing on the porch for a considerable amount of time, I saw the sun go down behind the treetops. Despite this, the air felt chilly. It was not necessary for anyone to tell me that I had made the correct decision. There are times when forgiveness is not the source of peace. There are instances when it is the act of leaving with both hands empty while still experiencing a sense of completeness. My new hallway was painted a buttery golden color, and the morning light caught the color. The walls were covered with artwork by Rosie. Simple wooden borders enclose a variety of objects, including rockets, capes, planets, and flowers. As I went by, I made contact with each one. A private practice that no one inquired about. It was fine with me. Through my experience with grief, I learned to value things that no one else did. It was not a rebuilding effort. Once more, this was the beginning. Whose norms are different, whose barriers are different, and whose only remaining person to please is myself. I was the host of a support group that could be found in the community center on Tuesday evenings. There are 6 parents. Every one of us had laid a kid to rest. No platitudes or timetables were exchanged between us in order to go ahead. The shame, the quiet, and the way time had curved around our suffering were all topics that we discussed. As a result of our honesty, we were able to piece ourselves back together, one thread at a time, despite the fact that we were shaking. Once upon a time, Noel appeared. He did not say a word as he sat in the back of the room. Only listened to it. I later learned that it was the first time since the burial that he had experienced a sense of being understood. So that was sufficient. A call came in from the coordinator of the hospital one day. She mentioned that the family are constantly inquiring about your return date. The desire is for more art days. Regarding the expansion of the program to the satellite clinics, would you be open to the idea? I responded with a yes. Without any reservations. Not being afraid. Early the following morning, I made my way to Rosie's cemetery. The grass had started to grow in, and it was bright and fragrant. I got down on my knees and placed a bouquet of daisies next to her stone. I lied to myself and muttered, "You have made me stronger than I ever thought I could be. And I guarantee it. I'm exhausting every last drop of it." There was a tiny envelope waiting for me beneath my door when I arrived home. The person who lived next door, Lily, had drawn something on the inside. Underneath a tree, There is a large red heart and stick figures that are holding hands. The note stated, "Your flowers brought a smile to my face. Your home is appealing to me." I affixed it to the refrigerator with tape. That evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea in my hand and watched the stars above me as they glowed with life. I didn't experience any feelings of being tormented by what I'd lost for the first time in a year. I experienced a sense of stability as a result of what I had recovered. Unlike the dawn, peace does not always appear out of nowhere. On occasion, it settles down in a calm, firm, and unapologetic manner. I had not only made it through them, I was able to surpass them.